Welcome to the State of the Job Market for Software Engineers Q1 2024 edition. Go ahead and drop your name, your LinkedIn into the chat. This is one part an education opportunity and the other part networking. So give us 1 second while I get everything kicked off. All right, so quick introductions, everybody. So my name is Eric Anderson. I'll be your host today. I'm a software engineer myself, developer advocate, focused on helping new developers find their first job in tech. I'm excited to be joined with a great panel here. Personally, I look up to all of them for the great work that they do to support new developers on their job search journey. I know 2023 was rough, but our goal today is to make 2024 a success for you and hopefully a little bit better. We're working to provide some actionable job search strategies that are relevant to today's job market. So before we get into it, some logistics here. We'll start off with a brief introduction by all the panelists, an opportunity to get to know them a little bit more. And then I have a few questions to help guide the conversation.
Like a magic trick.
And then the hope is at the very end, we'll have a few minutes to take some of your questions. So I just ask that you keep, audience members, keep your questions to the end. Post them in the chat. I'll get to what I can. Just please be friendly and cordial as you interact with each other there. So all right, panelists, time for the icebreaker. Amy, I'm going to start with you. Can you briefly introduce yourself and also answer the question, which fictional character do you think would make the best software engineer? Business oriented, dresses well, knows how to communicate. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. Welcome to the panel. Danny, we'll go to you next, and then we'll do Anna, and then David. So Danny, a little introduction, and who would be the best fictional software engineer?
Hey, y'all. I'm Danny Thompson. I tend to run my mouth on social media, and I've been doing that for years, and it's worked out pretty okay. I just finished keynoting at that conference, so that was really nice. Speaking out and, trying to help out where we can. Fictional character, I've kind of thought about this about 90 seconds. And so I ended up coming up with Sherlock Holmes, because why not? I think he would probably solve some problems. I also thought about Harry Potter. He could probably make all those bugs disappear and kind of get out of the way as well. And I decided to ask our overlord ChatGPT their opinion on who they thought was a good software engineer that would be a fictional character. And they came up with Hermione Granger.
Yes.
And the reasoning there was exceptionally intelligent, quick learner, strong problem-solving skills, creative, attentive to detail, teamwork and leadership, and can tell people to step up if needed. So I thought that was pretty useful.
I'll be honest, always had a little crush on Hermione growing up. She's a fantastic choice. Absolutely. All right, Anna, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Anna. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I worked in tech for 10 years, and now I run Second Careers, a company I founded to help people find their place in tech. Many of you have probably said hello to me. If you haven't, find me and send me a DM. So a fictional character that could be a software engineer. If you ever remember, back in a time when there were Game Boys, there was the Pokemon game, and there was Pikachu, and the guy that
Ash
was the
Ketchum.
player. Yes, that's the person. That's a fictional character. He looks very motivated and curious and possibly techie if he had a computer.
Started at a very young age. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
10 years old, right? Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Anna. Welcome. David, last but not least.
Hey, so my name is David Roberts. I am from the UK. I am sorry for that. So I run a company called Crushing.digital. So I've been a software developer for, I guess, 24 years now, which is way too long. And then I like to say in the last few years, I was tricked into the field of recruitment. So I've been on both sides of the fence. I've led international recruitment teams. I've been a developer and worked my way up to CTO and all those stupid titles that you get when you become senior stuff. So nowadays I teach software developers how to stand out in tech. And in terms of a character, I wish I'd use ChatGPT now, but I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of do you guys remember Inspector Gadget?
Yeah, classic.
Because he always seemed like he did a really great job, but actually did nothing, and the rest of the team around him was good. And I think that's what makes a great developer. If you can do nothing and have the rest of your team do the work for you,
now,
you're golden.
Did he make the gadgets, or is that somebody else? It's been a while.
Well, he made the gadgets, I think, but it was actually his dog and his daughter that actually did most of the work.
Okay.
So he just did nothing.
Okay.
I think he's a genius.
Yeah, sounds about right. I can see that. Well, welcome panel. Happy to have you here. So as far as the main content here, it's all about giving actionable job search advice that's relevant to today's job market. So Amy Miller, I'm going to look to you to help kick us off and help set the state of where we are. So sitting in Q1, what does that typically look like for recruiting? And what does that mean for new software engineers on the job search? Sure. So it sounds like a lot of recruiters, they have extra budget right now. So this would be the time to find opportunities and, get in their pipelines. Okay. Very good. So then that's where we are right now. So looking forward then for the rest of the year, David, this is going to be a question for you. What trends do you see for the type of skills and technologies that are going to be in demand so that developers are like upskilling themselves in the right way for this coming year?
Well, I thought about this before, and I think when you start to talk about developers coming in at the foundation level, it's easy for people to get distracted and start to think, I've got to be in AI. I've got to be at the forefront of machine learning. I've got to be at the forefront of everything. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on everyone coming into the industry. And I think actually what people are looking for, and when this market starts to open up, which it's really just starting to, when they start doing that, they're going to be looking for the foundation skills that have always been there, the same programming languages that have been there, the same technologies that have always been around. In terms of trends, I think because there's always these new tools and everyone's using them, those people that are starting to mess around and play with a lot of these tools and starting to connect them is actually the thing. You don't have to be a master in all these things, but someone who can actually start to connect lots of different tools together, that's where you really stand out. But then a lot of people are saying to me, do I need to have X language? If I had X language, I could get a job. If I had a Y qualification, I could get a job. And that's not really the case. There's no one thing that's actually going to make you stand out. So when this market does start to open up and we all look the same, when we're all at that graduate level, the thing that's going to help you to stand out, the thing that people are going to be looking for is who out of all these people now looks proactive, who's taken what they've learned, taken that course, and now is being proactive about doing something with it. So rather than just trying to obsess about, is this the right language? Is this the right technology? It's how are you presenting that you're actually doing something with it? That's how you're going to differentiate yourself from everybody else around you.
Sorry, I cut out.
Eric's either thinking about that question.
Yeah, sorry, I cut out for a little bit there. Yeah, I always wanted to add, so it's less about the skills or the actual technology, because at least there's a joke in the JavaScript world that like every 6 months there's a whole new framework you have to learn, right? And it would just be impossible to keep up with it. But proactivity. So that's really the action that you should be focusing on this year, because everybody's going to have the same certificate, side project, and you all look the same. Okay, that's good. And Anna, so you've worked specifically with career transitioners before they've had to upskill themselves. So are there any specific industries or sectors within tech that you see are becoming more open to entry-level clients recently? And if so, where are you finding them?
Yeah, absolutely. So across the board, there always have been certain hiring pipelines, and maybe Amy knows a little about this as well, because I'm not directly a recruiter. But bigger companies have developed emerging talent pipelines, right? So if you are in a boot camp or some kind of educational organization that has relationships with those pipelines, you're in a good place. The slight challenge that we're facing is those pipelines are getting smaller, and some companies have paused or decided to stop them entirely. So we don't know when that will come back. However, there are still companies, like I saw a post, someone got into Walmart in their emerging talent pipeline. So there are still companies that will continue to do this, because if companies stop hiring, they stop growing. So if a company wants to grow, they have to hire. The bigger the company is, the more opportunities they might have for these like earlier career people. So those industries would be retail, like Walmart, for example, and banks. Banks are huge organizations that are not necessarily tech first. So they really are always looking for new tech talent, because they're still in that space where they're growing their knowledge in the tech space as an industry. And they still might have those pipelines available. Now, regardless of those big industries like banking and finance and retail, for example, there are a million startups out there that we don't know in super niche spaces. So I can't really generalize, because there's no like one industry or another that's like hankering for early career talent. It's about that personal branding and proactivity that David was talking about understanding your background, talking about it, and then bringing in your new skills as an engineer. And I'll end on a really small kind of high level case study. A client came in last year whose background was in law. He worked 5 years as a contract lawyer, and he decided he wanted to be in touch in the law industry, but not as a lawyer. So he retrained as an engineer. So when he started his job search, we decided let's focus on legal tech. It's an industry you have extensive experience in, and now you can combine that with your engineering space. And what's interesting is legal tech is a very niche space. So there's very relatively small amount of companies, maybe a couple hundred. So he found a podcast. He posted about it on LinkedIn. The founder of the podcast connected to him to a community. He ended up connecting with the startup almost within that same week. So he went from post to offer within maybe 1 to 2 weeks. This was because he utilized his background. He publicly talked about his knowledge, tagged other creators, and connected with people who are very interested in his particular background. So get to know who you are and then find those industry that will value your background.
Yeah, your non-tech experience isn't necessarily a liability if you look in the right spot, because most everybody is looking at the big tech firms, but there are so many others that need software developers. They all have a back end, e-commerce site or what have you. So Danny, looking to you, in a lot of your advocacy, you focus on developers that are coming from non-traditional backgrounds, trying to really change their lives, you mirroring your own story. What services or programs do you recommend that help developers gain education or land that first job, especially if they're coming from a non-traditional background?
Yeah, I help traditional, non-traditional, et cetera. I think both paths to getting into tech are quite similar. But to be honest with you, there's no one size fits all. Like, I can't tell you if you go to X program, you're guaranteed employment, right? Like, I can tell you that there's, Black Girls Code. There's the Black President Society. There's an acronym for BPDA. They're a great group as well. Women Who Code is a great group. Launch Code is a great group. But the reality is, every single organization, bootcamp or not, they have programs or pipelines. But I can't even begin to tell you how many bootcamp students I have in my DMs that they graduated, can't land a job. And so even that's not a one size fits all. And so I'm not pro bootcamp. I'm not anti bootcamp. I just think that if you're going into that relationship, you need to know what you're getting into, especially when you're spending, $15,000 to $30,000. It's an obscene amount of money. And so without that, pipeline in place, or at least a higher level of guarantee, it's kind of tough, because at least with the degree, you could take that anywhere, people recognize it. You graduate a bootcamp, no one cares about that certificate, right? No one cares about this cert that you got from being in XYZ program. It doesn't hold its weight in the long term. So you need to think about what are you actually getting out of that, right? And so for me, kind of going to one thing I'll say as far as landing that first opportunity, you need to, honestly, I'm going to make it as simple as possible. You need to at least give yourself a fighting chance. And so many people don't do that. Prime example, I even wrote about this and tweeted about this the other day. I got on a call with somebody. They literally said, Danny, I've been trying to get a job in tech for 4 years. 4 years, no one's hiring juniors. It's just not there. And I feel like it's time for me to jump onto something else. I was like, 4 years, something's obviously disconnected. Something's wrong. Let's jump onto this call and figure out what's happening. Within 1 minute, it was blatantly obvious why they're not getting callbacks. They're not getting interviews. LinkedIn, empty. GitHub, not a single contribution in the entire year. Projects, simple YouTube tutorials. Resume, the most basic of basics in the world. Networking, absolutely zero. What are we doing here? If you're not willing to give yourself the opportunity to invest in yourself, why should somebody else manufacture that for you? There's no incentive for me or anyone to give you an opportunity, right? You have to provide some inherent level of value. So if you're not doing that and you're not reducing the learning curve or even the potential onboarding process for an organization, why should they talk to you? And in that tweet, there were many comments, of course. And one person in particular said, what if somebody has all of these things already done and they're still not getting hired? I said, obviously, it's not a one size fits all. You're just increasing the likelihood of getting this. But almost every single time someone has ever said this, there's always been something wrong. And when I pull up that person's comments, I was like, well, here's the reason why you're not getting calls. And here's the issue here. People don't think about that. And I think one big thing, if you could walk away with this from this 5-minute segment, one big thing, if you're not thinking about a strategy when you're putting your stuff together and you're just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, that's a very bad move. When I think about LinkedIn, when I think about resume, when I think about portfolio sites and projects, the one big thing I'm thinking about is, how is this setting me up to talk about this within the interview process? How is this setting me up to say, hey, I have value in XYZ and here's that proof of that. Here's a problem that I solved. Here's a solution that I delivered. And here's how I can talk about it technically. You're doing yourself a disservice and you need to really think about that when it comes to getting an opportunity. that doesn't really matter if you're coming from an underprivileged background or community or not. It doesn't matter if you're coming from an Ivy League school or not, because both sets of people, actually 3 sets of people, self-taught, boot camp, and college grad, all in my DMs all the time. I even have DMs from people saying, I'm thinking about dropping out of college to learn to code. And I'm saying, if you're already in there, don't do that, right? Same situation there. So regardless of your background, if you're not bringing value to the table, no one's bringing a paycheck with your name on it.
And the examples of resources that you called out were all free. You talked about your LinkedIn profile. Anybody can create that and publish that for free. Your GitHub profile, you can make contributions for free. Nobody's saying you have to spend thousands of dollars in order to create a profile that differentiates you in this market. So Amy, looking to you though, so hiring is still happening. Anna shared a great example. But a lot of folks are still shaken by the big tech layoffs in 2023 and even early this year. So in your opinion, when you look to 2024, do you think it will be any different? And what advice do you have for individuals trying to get into software engineering to increase their chance of success?
Want to tangent a little bit, but y'all, Devon, where am I going to go? Like that.
I used to find out what your non-technical differentiators are. Like if you're willing to travel or work in person, maybe even for lesser pay, these are all the jobs that people are going to be passing over because they want remote work. They want the high salary, the big company. But if you're willing to, at least for the first role, make that compromise, if you can make it work, obviously.
It's a step.
Yeah, it's a barring an abusive environment.
You're not carrying the job.
Absolutely. And David, you have a similar story working as an agency recruiter now. So similar question to you. What strategies do you recommend for new software engineers to stand out in this competitive field? Before you answer that question, though, I am getting a prompt saying, if you could please refresh your browser, the recording is having issues with your machine. So that question actually...
I think that might be for you.
Might be for me? Okay, well, I guess we'll find out. Can you try, David, see if the error goes away? We'll get him back here in a second. Thank you for your patience, folks. All right, so questions in the chat, keep popping them in there. We just have a few questions left. We are about halfway through. We have hopefully trying to get about 15 minutes ready for you all. And then we'll go through those questions then. Okay, the error has disappeared.
Am I here?
Yes, you are here.
Yes.
All right, you're back.
Yeah, you're here. Eric is the one.
It's probably me. All right, so David, so what strategies do you recommend for new software engineers trying to stand out in tech?
So, and this is a great question, and it's actually a combination of what we've all been saying, particular points that Danny just made and Amy have kind of added on to that. So I get sent a lot of resumes every day, a lot of LinkedIn profiles, and the first thought that usually pops into my head is, great, but I still don't know what you do. I read it and it's not clear what that person wants to do. Now, you see this with senior developers who like to just put software developer and then they say, I can do anything. But does the recruiter, does the company understand that you can do anything? Is anyone searching for anything? They're searching for something specific. And now when you apply that to juniors, a lot of juniors touch a variety of tech through their courses. And then they get to the end of it and they'll just say full stack developer, front end developer, back end developer. Doing what? It's not apparent. It's not clear. This is a sales tactic. And I always say, if you had a shop, you wouldn't sort of say to somebody, because when I'm asking them, where is your value? What's the thing you want me to know about you? What's the tech you use? Now, if you had a shop and I said, you tell the customer, hey, if you want to see the products, you need to go to the back, go down the stairs and speak to the man in a mask. You're not going down those stairs. You're never going there. You need to bring the products out and show them to people. So you need to bring your value out. Why are you the answer for somebody? So when I'm looking at these profiles, it's not immediately clear what you do. So I would make your profile absolutely clear. This is my tech stack. This is what I'm focusing on. This is what I'm learning. So that learning part is really important. How are you being proactive? And I often say, someone says, oh, I'm going to be or I want to be a front end developer. Great. How are you making this happen? And this is where, when you're brand new, you haven't got the chance to just rely on the experience section. Every resume is focused on the experience section. Every LinkedIn, it's all about the experience. And for us as brand new people into this, that's the one thing you haven't got. So now you've got to do something else. That's where the activity section has to sing. And I'm always reminded of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Someone was talking to him saying, I'm concerned about doing this pose. I haven't got this muscle. whatever it is. And he's like, well, don't do that pose. If you don't have the experience, don't draw attention to the experience. You need to draw attention to your proactivity. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, everyone coming out of the boot camp, everyone coming out of any course, anyone self-taught, you all look the same, but everyone's trying to showcase this certificate, this shiny thing, or maybe it's a link to your project, which no one understands anyway, because they don't get to see the tech underneath. You've got to learn to unpack that value. You've got to show people what you're doing to make this happen. So then I always tell the story, if you're a dance teacher and you're going to give special attention to one student and you walk in and it's a class of kids and most of them are, just lying around the floor doing nothing. And one kid is just badly, but desperately trying to pirouette in the corner. Who are you going to teach? And that's these companies that are going to take you on as a graduate, these recruiters that are going to take a chance on you. Who are they going to take a chance on? They're going to take a chance on someone who's being proactive, someone who's showcasing what they're doing. So if you can actually start to do that, you will start to stand out. And then the next thing, as Amy very correctly said, everybody is just hoping that they're going to be in FANG or something similar. Almost everybody. And the next thing, when people come to me every day and say, I've applied to 400 jobs and heard nothing, I always ask the same question. Where and how have you been applying? And I have never, ever, ever had a different answer to this. It's always LinkedIn, Indeed, Total Jobs, and I'm not against recruiters. I'm just saying they're all recruiters. No one's actually going back to old school values, because when I ring up companies, and recruiters, most of their work is actually trying to open up companies. And when they ring up these companies and say, are you hiring? Usually they answer no. And I say, please. And they say, well, we're always hiring if someone interesting comes along. Now, what does that mean? That means the tech you use is right and the fee for hiring you is quite low. Now, what they're trying to do to the recruiter is drive the price down, ideally. But if you can start to, you can apply on LinkedIn, you can apply to big tech, you can use recruiters, but you can also start to reach out and apply to these companies directly. And if you can look at the people that are working there already. If you can say they already hire React developers, I'm going to shove my resume in there and your resume looks right and your LinkedIn profile shows proactivity. So they can interview some of these people that are going to cost a few thousand to hire over here, or they can talk to you for free. You at least get an interview. So instead of being one of 1,000 applicants to somewhere, instead of being one of 3,000 applicants, you can be one of 5. You can be one of 1. And then as soon as you start putting multiple irons in the fire and then adding on that other caveat of when you actually can drag someone to look at your profile for longer than 5 seconds, they can see not just direction in where you're going, but also proactivity about making this happen. You start to stand out, and you don't have to stand up much in this market right now because most people are doing nothing in terms of trying to stand out. We all look the same. We've all got the same qualifications. You stand up a little, a lot happens.
Thank you, David. That was a great summary there. You've talked about standing out in tech and provided some great examples. Danny, I'm going to look to you now because you made a similar statement talking about how you look at these resumes, you looked at on their LinkedIn, you talk about how there's nothing there. I want to be a little bit more specific though. Is there, what's specifically on their LinkedIn or their resume are they missing that you see immediately as something that's stopping them from being pursued by a recruiter?
Yeah, here's the example that I always give to kind of like make this easier for people to conceptualize. When you apply for a role, no one is like, hey, Jimmy, the private investigator, so-and-so applied to this role, find out every single detail of their life. That's not happening. They got your resume, they got your LinkedIn profile, and whatever else you provided them. That's it. So they have to make a determination on who you are and what you're about based off of that. Now, here's the thing people don't think about. Who's the very first line of hiring? Oftentimes, the recruiter, corporate recruiter, someone in HR, et cetera, it's not necessarily someone that's coming from a very strong technical background. But what do a lot of technical developers do? They over-technicalize all their achievements and contributions to where no one even knows or has a clue what this means. I literally pulled up a profile that I went over the other day, right? And this is an exact bullet point on this profile. Build internal IAC using AWS CDK and GitHub Actions. What does that mean to someone who doesn't use these tools? They don't know what you just did, man. They don't know if this is great, if this is terrible, if this is run-of-the-mill average stuff somebody would do in this role. You need to be able to explain your contributions in a non-technical way as well as in a technical capacity to kind of build that bridge out. The other thing is quantify. If you say you increase site speed, I don't know if that means 0.5%, 100%, 3,000%. When you quantify something, it makes this arbitrary item very real. It makes it very concrete, but it also gives you a base to talk about these things, right? Now, obviously you can't quantify everything. And if you're in a position now where you're like, well, I can't quantify what I have on my resume, this should be a very big wake up call for you going forward, because you in your roles, I don't care if you have 10 years of experience. Right now we have developers with 7 years of experience that can't land a job, right? Why? They put themselves in a position where the entire time this market has been very developer sided, they could cough and like make that cough could sound like JavaScript, and they had an interview, right? Now there's a surplus to where now you have to actually showcase, hey, I've done this. And so now they're looking back through their resumes and their LinkedIns for all these years, like, I can't quantify any of this. You should be in all of your one-on-ones very specific on what you're doing there. I constantly ask for, hey, 6 weeks ago we worked on this initiative, this feature, it went out. Did it do good? Did it do bad? Are we doing poorly? What happened with that? What were the results? I take that. As soon as I get that metric, it's on my resume and LinkedIn. I'm not saying I'm doing that for, hey, I need to look for a new job, but let's be real, everybody's gonna be looking for a new job eventually. But when it comes to review time and raise time at the end of the year, guess who's not having to chase behind all these metrics, trying to like come up with why I need to get my raise this year or why I need to get this promotion? Everyone at the end of the year when it's review time, they're spending an entire 2-3 weeks trying to get everything done. I got 10 minutes and all my stuff is up to date and accurate.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I always get a raise, I get a promotion, right? So some of the things that I look for on a LinkedIn, obviously talking about some of the things that you've done within your role, whether it's a technical role or not, I think it's really, really important to have a lot of that stuff there. Even if you were a barista, like, and another example that I often give is like, if you were a barista, I know you made coffee. You don't need to tell me, hey, I brewed coffee. But what did you do within that role specifically that said, hey, you've been working here for 3 years. You're not here simply because you showed up to work on time. What did you do? Did you help increase point of purchase impulse buying by re-merchandising something at the front of sale? Did you help make sure that there were no expired products by creating a rotational strategy? Stuff like that, talk about that, right? I think that goes a very long way. I did the same thing when it came to frying chicken in the gas station. Like, I literally put all that information there. And when I'd go into interviews, I'd be like, this is kind of interesting, but I see what you've done, and I was able to relate that. I think the other thing you need to be doing when it comes to like, especially your LinkedIn and your resume, don't just put your roles. Did you do any volunteer experience? Did you get any awards? Did you do any achievements? Did you showcase leadership? Eric, obviously we're volunteering twice a month now with meetups, right? But I think one big thing in particular is that experience doesn't expire. You're not bound by time to talk about that contribution. Maybe you helped out a homeless kitchen last year, right? That doesn't mean because it's been a year, you can't talk about that anymore. You can absolutely have that on there. So I'm very big. I think you need to volunteer. I think it goes a long way. And obviously one of the best parts about volunteering too, obviously the experience doesn't expire. You're helping out your local community, but you're also networking and meeting other people that have similar morals and merits where they're volunteering as well. I think it's a great networking opportunity in that respect. The other thing that I'd say is you have the ability to take people on a path that, especially when it comes to your LinkedIn profile, that allows you to stand out more than that piece of paper, right? Showcase those achievements. Talk about how you helped out with XYZ. Talk about how you led ABC initiative and really highlight that. They get a glimpse of you. And if you're painting that picture out for them, it's going to be better for them to understand who you are and what you're about. But the other thing is, and I genuinely believe this, a set up LinkedIn profile actually increases your rates of replies, whether you realize that or not. What do you think? If someone doesn't know who I am and what I'm about and I DM them, what do you think is the very first course of action that they take before replying? They click on my profile. Oftentimes, your profile can be a reason why someone ends up replying to you. And oftentimes people are neglecting that the most, and that's why they end up getting ghosted more often than not. I think a setup profile showcasing all your abilities goes a really long way. It's a very strong strategy. Also, a setup profile, if we're being real, it lands you in job searches. And think about who's making the job searches. People that are really ready to put people in seats. And they're the decision makers for those businesses. If your profile is not landing you up in enough job searches, it's obviously not set up correctly, number one. But number two, if people are landing on your profile that are ready to have these conversations, you obviously have a higher likelihood of potentially converting those views into messages for potential interviews. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not capitalizing on that in the right way.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that you're a passionate software engineer and another thing to actually show that you're a passionate software engineer and this volunteer work and all the extra effort you're putting into it. One is more valuable than the other. So Anna, I want to look to you now. So this will be the last question, then we'll get to the Q&A. But you shared a great example earlier of a case study of one of
Always at the wrong moment.
One of the customers you're working with on how they've been able to apply some of these strategies to actually land a job. Do you have any other client success stories that have highlighted the effectiveness of some of these strategies that you can share with us?
Yes. So I'm going to drop his profile in the chat. His name is Aiden. I am really excited to share his story because basically, he is one of many people out there. He's not the only one who did it, but he's one of the clients in my program that conducted his job search this way. And he really relied on networking to find the right role and the right people. And what I'm talking about is not just, oh, just send out a bunch of messages and see who responds. It's a little deeper than that. That's one of the first steps. Yes. One, he was consistent. So a lot of people, when they're so involved in their job search, especially the first 1 to 2 years of their career, they get really down on themselves and they get frustrated very easily or kind of right away. It depends. So if you're feeling like you're frustrated, it's okay. It's part of the process. So the thing is, if you're frustrated, you don't want to stop you from being consistent. So Eden was, when he joined the program, he didn't job search for a year because from the time of his boot camp to when he joined working with me, he basically kind of paused his job search and he didn't see any results. When he joined, he started networking consistently until he landed an offer.
Is it just
and
me or
this
did I lose Anna?
for almost 5 months.
Me too.
Every single week, he would contact new people. This would be 10, sometimes 20 people at a company, not 100 companies, right? But whatever, a good number of companies. So he would contact maybe 300-400 new people a week, and then some percentage would respond, and then some percentage would help him, right? So when you're doing this and you're newer to the industry, this is really important to do consistently. This is not like a one and done strategy. And anyone can do this. And I teach anyone that wants to do this, how to do this in a human and relational way. So Aiden took this strategy and he didn't have any experience more or less than any bootcamp grad, like we're CS degree person. Like he had a couple of projects and one internship. What he really was looking for was the right company, right? That was looking for someone with his level of experience. And those companies exist. They may take you a couple months to find, or maybe a year. That's fine. That's the process. So the consistency is key, and building that relational capital, building those relationships and having those conversations with a wide array of people, that was really, really important to his search. And what he landed on was a company with really nice people. And what I mean by that is multiple people responded to him on LinkedIn. In this case, they were active on LinkedIn. Not everyone's active. The people that responded actively wanted to help him and actively gave him referrals. So for this one company that he joined, he got multiple referrals, which put him to the front of the line when they did start the hiring pipeline. If he didn't do that, the recruiter that came in to start the hiring process would have no place, like they wouldn't know who to start with. They would just kind of go through the pile, like pick one person, maybe another. But he had multiple people recommending him. So he already had that trust and advocacy in the company. So he was probably the first or second person that came into the pipeline. So when you have multiple referrals, again, these were not his best friends. These were just people that he met that were very helpful and that chose to support him. So he basically did all the things that anyone can do. This is not magic. This is very, very simple strategies and tactics. But the mindset comes first. So he had the mindset of consistency, of I will keep going. And then he used the strategies of tactics of creating a network, of reaching out to people, building his confidence through connection calls. And then he landed on a company that was the right fit for his amount of experience and the role that required it. And that's how he landed his first job in tech. His timeline since he started working with me, so for example, when he joined the program, was about 5 months. And that was because not every role is a good fit. Not every company is hiring right away. So you got to keep going and being consistent with growing your network in a relational and meaningful way and finding those advocates to help you. So I like to end on that note because it's very inspirational. And if he can do it, certainly anyone can do it.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I definitely wanted to end with a success story here because I know there's been so many, so much negative press about the current job market. But it's definitely still possible. The opportunities are still there. Software engineering is still a great field to get into, and it's you got to get that first opportunity, and then once you have a few years of experience, then the opportunities open up and it becomes a lot easier for sure. So that's it for the panel questions. So please give me some round of applause in the chat for all of our panelists and answering those questions. Really appreciate their participation. Panelists, I asked if there's any follow-up links. Yes, I did an email blast that included some links, but if you can drop any extra links that you have here for your LinkedIn. I saw you, Amy, dropping your recruiter in yoga pants link there, so throw that in the chat. So the last few minutes that we have here, I do want to give an opportunity for audience members to be able to ask questions. I've seen a few. I'm going to start skimming through the chat. So start throwing them here in the bottom, and it'll be for panelists. This is
Eric,
an
while you
open
find that,
forum,
can I
so if you
address
feel like
one
you have a
thing
good
that I saw in the
answer,
chat that I
raise
think
your
will be
hand and
valuable?
throw it in. And we'll go
He's
from there.
silent, so I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Did I cut out again?
You have no idea how much you've cut out today.
Are you
so,
kidding me? What's going on?
oh, it's been nonstop.
Lot.
It's been a running joke that you have not been a part of, unfortunately. But
this is why we can't have nice things. I need to pay for better
I'm
internet.
hoping the local recording
Yeah.
does much better with this.
All right, thank you for
The
everybody's
virtual host.
patience.
She needs you people.
Yeah, I'm a back-end engineer. I do this kind of stuff. I gotta let me get in the code and fix this.
Yeah.
All right.
So one thing I want to address that I've been seeing in the chat, if I
Sure.
can, real
Mhm.
fast,
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of people saying, I'll take an internship at this point, and I'll take an unpaid internship. Here's my belief, and this might be a hot take. I don't know. If you are not a college student, you should not be looking at internships, as far as I'm concerned. If you can get an internship, you can get a full-time role. Simple as that, right? And I think by putting your sights so low, it's very easy for you to miss significantly. And so for me, I'll tell you this. I genuinely believe a lot of people end up capping their own success without even realizing it. And because the ceiling is so low, it becomes I actually addressed this in my talk at that conference. When your ceiling is so low, it's really hard to see past that. And so for me, when I became a developer, I never had the goal of, I want to be an intern or an entry-level developer or something like that. I was like, I'm going to be the best developer I can be. Obviously, junior is going to be a natural stepping stone on that path. So when I would go into conversations, you need to really realize this. You are valuable at the end of the day. Someone said they can't hear me, but everybody else can. So
I can
hopefully
hear
fix
you.
your
I don't know
audio
if that counts for anything, though.
Yeah, there we go.
You're not here, Eric.
Look, it's crazy. Eric's screen is so clear now, and now it's passed on to Anna. Like his bad
Oh,
internet
no.
was spreading.
Diseased.
But the one thing that I'll say here is, honestly, don't cap your success in this. You're valuable. You know a valuable set of skills. Only 3% of the nation in America work in computer-related positions. You know something that 97% of the country does not know. That is valuable at the end of the day. So you need to start entering these conversations, recognizing that, realizing that, and showcasing that. If you're not doing those three things, you're a big reason why you're in your own way, and you need to start stepping out of it and start showcasing that value. So please don't set your sights so low.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I want to
All right,
plus
so
one
I
to
was skimming through
everything
here
Danny
trying to
said,
catch
but
some
I also
questions. If
wanna,
I
like,
missed some,
tag on
please just
from
repost them.
a
There's
hiring
lot of chats here.
perspective. So not only
But
as a
the one
corporate
that I
recruiter,
last
but also
saw
again,
was just
like
about when
channeling
it comes to
my
content
hiring
creation
managers, right?
and being networking online.
We
Just
post
what
roles
does
because we're
that
trying to solve a
look
problem.
like to be active on LinkedIn? Panelists, anybody have a good response there? Yeah, Anna, you want to go?
I'll start, but I'd love to hear from the others right after me. Basically, I only started with LinkedIn in earnest last year. So I learned everything pretty quickly by following others, seeing what they're doing, kind of putting my take on it. The easiest way you can start to create content is find 1 or 2 stories about yourself that you feel really passionate about, like sharing.
It
So
is
that could be
spreading.
your learning journey into
Everyone
engineering, your passion for tech, something about
Yeah,
your previous
David's calling
career,
in from
something
the
personal,
United
even
Kingdom
maybe
here,
moving to a
and
different
he's been
country.
crystal
So
clear
just
this entire
start with
time.
1 story about who you are. Like
Probably not.
people
David
try to
starts the
hide
war.
who they are and they talk about projects, for example, which
I
is
could
a
do my
content
take on networking
topic,
if you like.
but shouldn't be
At
the
this
only
point, we need
one.
to talk about
So start with
actual
who you are
networking,
and
system
help
networking.
yourself
Yeah,
become more
yeah,
comfortable
networking.
over time, sharing who you
Yeah,
are.
check the
on
career
LinkedIn
page
and
for
other
Riverside.
platforms.
They may need some developers.
Or maybe I'm
Podcasts
curious
need
if
some
we're
help
just
in my
at their
neighborhood,
threshold
apparently.
for the number of attendees, listening in live or something. All right.
The thing for me
Okay.
on networking, if
Yeah, go
to
ahead, David.
fill in the gap, is I think a lot of people that come to me when they're talking about networking, they think they've got to network with the entire world. And, if you're a junior developer, in today's market, people are still nervous about hiring remote. I've been remote for a long time, but people are still nervous. They do tend to favor local, more local developers when they're looking for a junior, because they know they're going to have to invest in you. And they want someone who's going to stay around, because they're going to invest a couple of years into you. So you need to start infiltrating that local network. So I'm a fan of finding what I call seeds. Go and find, whether it's through tech meetup, whether it's online. There's a million ways to do this, but find local people So say you go to a tech meetup, you meet me talking about React. Not that I'm a React developer, but let's say you meet me, right? Instead of going to that meetup and going, oh, I met Dave, he seemed really nice, bit boring during his talk, but never mind, right? So you want my LinkedIn profile. You want to see where I work because they probably hire React developers. So why not have a look there? And they don't even need to be hiring right now. You can just send them a resume and say, hey, I'm a React developer. I've got this skill, this skill, this skill. I'm learning this and this. If you're interested in, having a chat, great. And send them your resume, send them your LinkedIn profile. Now, where did I work previously? And the time before that, and the time before that. And every time you find these companies on LinkedIn, click on the people. So the company, let's say I was working somewhere as a React developer, click on people on LinkedIn, filter it for React. Now you've got all their React developers. You can join the conversation with, if they're posting about stuff, you can join that conversation. Now you're starting to network with local developers who use the tech that you want to use, and you're going to be seen by local employers who are interested in your skill set. And then you go on to the next company and you find the next person, you look at all their working history and apply to all their companies. And each time you find a company, you find lots of people in the team. Every time you find a team, you find lots of people. Rinse and repeat. Before the end of probably about a week or two by doing this, you should know pretty much every company that hires for your tech stack in your local area. More importantly, you're now networking with all the people who are vocal and, active on social media. When people say I've applied to 300 jobs and got nowhere, that still might be the case. I guess it's more likely going to get hired because there won't be a queue of 1,000 people and there won't be a fee to hire you. And more importantly, you now know all the developers in the area. Your network is strong.
Yeah, and
now you're going to be in everywhere you go.
And these opportunities are just going to be potentially just on the company's website and not even on one of the third-party aggregators, because it costs money to post these applications to these external sites. So it can be less competition for the roles that you do apply to as well. Anna, welcome back. Can you hear us?
Yes, I realized that I had to restart, so that seems to
It
solve
looks
it.
like it affected Amy as well.
Yeah,
So
it's okay.
you were in the middle of a
Oh, boy.
great response to
I was.
networking on LinkedIn. We only got like 2 sentences, though.
Oh my God. Okay. Basically, exactly what I said was talk about yourself. Pick a personal story about your learning journey or your transition to a new country, or something that you're proud of. Anything about yourself that you start talking about. So basically, personal branding, posting about yourself, job search, anything that you're looking for in life could basically be boiled down to storytelling. So start telling your story and start getting comfortable sharing who you are in a more public forum, which is exactly what you're doing in an interview in a more formal way. But do that more publicly on LinkedIn and you will start to find more people that want to help you. A lot of people have found great success with this, and LinkedIn is literally the best platform for this.
Now, I see some responses in the chat here, but I want to make sure this question gets surfaced. And Danny, I want to see, we've heard from David and Anna. I want to see if you have some thoughts on this, Danny. But the question from Emmanuel is, if I message a hiring manager that is not replying back, should I leave and look for other ones? Like, I literally have someone reference, but after calling him, he was busy and asked me to drop my portfolio and everything, but he never replied to my message. What do you think is the best approach here, if I may?
Yeah, I kind of said this earlier, right? Never put all your eggs in one basket. I don't put all my effort into one human being. There are almost 8 billion people on this planet. You just need one of them to give you the opportunity that you're looking for, right? So it's a numbers game. It's more conversations will get you closer to opportunities. If I notice someone's ghosting me, that's fine. I don't over pester because then they start associating me with negative feelings. Ghost them back for a little bit, circle back in 6 weeks, circle back in 4 weeks, which I know is a lot because they're like, hey, I thought this was going productive. I thought this was going positive. Have more conversations, reach out to more people, start expanding that network. Here's the other thing that I'll tell you. My approach on networking with LinkedIn has changed over time. And one big reason was this. It took me to a similar situation as to what this question is asking for me to actually recognize this. I would spend all this time crafting these well-crafted, if I say so myself, well-crafted, really excellent direct messages, right? Very personable, great messages. And I'd spend little effort on this, right? And then no response. I'm like, dang, I'm spending all this time creating this and no one's like, it sets on one set of eyeballs. They don't reply. It's not a good experience. Obviously, it's not a good experience for them because they ghosted me, but it's not a great experience for me either because I'm taking all this time to do this, right? What did I end up realizing after a while? If I comment on their post, right? Maybe they're still ghosting me. That's cool. But everyone in their network that's seeing this post and goes to the comments is seeing my comment. They're now, and here's the best part about this. Other software developers hang out with other software developers. Other recruiters know other recruiters. Other hiring managers know other hiring managers, right? I'm now seeing and getting in front of all these eyeballs. But here's the thing. This is key because people mess this up. Don't go there saying, I'm trying to get a job. I need a job. Give me a job, please. I need a job. No one's going to be like, oh, I have this job chest here that was just waiting for someone to ask me out of the blue. Now I'm going to go ahead and open it and give you a job. That's not the way this works. You need to add value to the overall conversation. And when you do add value, people start paying attention to that. That is the highest way to get very concentrated, specific audiences to notice what you can bring to the conversation. Over time, this compounds. And so even for me, I can't notice every message I get, especially likes on a post. I'll be honest with you, I appreciate every single one of them. I can't see 90% of them, right? It's like, especially when you combine all my social, especially Twitter and stuff, when you combine all that, it's impossible. And being real about it also, I love LinkedIn. It's giving me a lot of opportunities. LinkedIn's notifications suck, y'all. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've gotten notifications for a post I was tagged in a week ago, and I'll just get it today, right? It's unfortunate, but it's true. So what ends up happening there, when you comment, everyone eventually sees their comments. So based off of that, if you keep adding value, even me, I'm like, I need to know who this person is. When you're adding value and you're continuing the conversation and you're adding engaging points to it, you've got me enthralled and you've got my audience enthralled. That's how you start getting more specific, great individuals checking out your stuff. And if your profile's set up correctly, you convert a viewer into someone who's engaging and messaging you. The rest is history.
I think I cut out there, but I'm sure it was a wonderful ending, Danny. Amy,
It was great.
it was great. It was great. Amy, I'm going to let you close us out. We lost you for a while, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to share some closing thoughts as well.
Yeah.
So I don't see any, I think we have every question in the chat, but any closing thoughts you want to leave
I
us
was
with?
listening to all of you.
Okay.
I just obviously could not speak up or be seen, apparently, even though I could see myself on the other screen.
You're back.
Yeah, I would say, on the networking thing, I have a 3-touch rule. I'm going to attempt to reach out to you 3 times. And the third time is, I'm going to leave you alone. Thanks so much. If you ever want to get in touch, here's how to reach me. And I'm done. I say it nicer than that, right? Because we don't want to have screenshots are forever, y'all. You don't want to end up on LinkedIn lunatics. And I think the one thing I want people to take away, there's been a lot of discussion about value and how valuable I am and my skills and my this and my that. Nobody cares. Sorry. Nobody cares. What they care about is how are you going to solve their problem? So it's not, I don't care because I'm a bad person and don't like you. It's because what I really care about is I think last time I looked, 55 open roles across 4 business groups, and I have to fill all of them. And every role is super important to the manager on the other side of that role. And so my time, energy, and effort has to be spent there. And so if you're popping into my inbox as the solution to one of those problems, you have my attention. Right? That's the key. Like, you have to understand, looking at job descriptions, networking with folks in your industry, in your neighborhood, in your geographic area, whatever, your school, your whatever, your church, you name it. These people exist everywhere. Go talk to your kid's t-ball coach. Oh, he happens to be a developer who's looking for interns. Look at you making connections, right? And so you want to tap into those, but always from the perspective of, how can I actually be a value add to this organization? How can I solve a problem they have? Like, oh, I don't know, internet connectivity is terrible, right? So that's the focus. I want you to worry less about, getting all emotional about my value and getting really, really tactical about how I can exchange my skills for money.
Yeah, then it's a win-win, right? They're paying because they want you, and you're getting paid because you want to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Amy, thank you so much for that thought. Thank you to everybody that joined today. It's unfortunately all the time that we have. Thanks for tuning in to the Junior Jobs Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, as that helps us reach more developers in need. And don't forget to check the show notes for details on today's sponsor and other job search services that we provide.